All right, I want to bring in our experts now. Bobby Chacon is a former FBI special agent, and David Bernstein is the founder and CEO of the North American Values Institute. He spent nearly 13 years in senior roles with the American Jewish Committee, the group that actually hosted that event last night in Washington, D.C. He's also the author of Woke Anti-Semitism, How Progressive Ideology Harms Jews. Great to have both of you here. Bobby, I want to just start with you and about this suspect in the police investigation. The suspect in this case was seen pacing outside the Jewish Museum before the victims emerged, and then he shot them. And then he went inside the museum. You don't see this very often. Criminals usually flee the scene. What was going on, do you think?
Well, first of all, my thoughts and prayers go out to the families and the people that are
Absolutely.
Victims of this terrible tragedy. But, you say the word criminal, but I look at this guy as more of a terrorist. And so, a terrorist, almost like having a suicide bombing vest, he went in there to kill more people. He went in there, not caring whether or not he was shot by the police, so I think that he was hell-bent on more destruction and more deaths. I don't think he's very skilled at what he did. I think he, as the ambassador just said, I think he's probably very uneducated. I think he took out the wrong kafir. It wasn't even a Palestinian kafir that he pulled out. So I think that, this was a guy that was, radicalized, as you just said, with a lot of these protests. He's consuming this either personally in person or online or on the news, and he gets himself radicalized. He gets convinced that Israel is something that it is not. And he takes this action because he's so uneducated on what's happening, that he thinks there's this genocide, or he thinks that there's this regime that's killing people. And so he takes this action, when it's totally unjustified. He's a terrorist.
And David, I'll get to you in a second. But Bobby, this Rodriguez is from Chicago. He bought the gun legally in Illinois. Did he drive all the way to Washington, D.C. just to commit these crimes?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I think that, when you see radicalized people like this, they do things like this. They travel far distances. When they get, themselves in a mental state where they're going to commit an act like this, sure, they will drive or take a bus or so however they think they can get there under the radar, so to speak, and carry out this act.
David, you created the event this couple was attending. And last night, they were there to discuss ways to get humanitarian aid into Gaza. Sarah Milgram had devoted all her young career toward achieving peace.
Yeah, it was 20 years ago, and we tried to create an event. We created a beautiful event with young diplomats from around the world, with Israeli diplomats, with American Jewish young people who came together to discuss reconciliation and understanding. We thought it was a great event, and that's why it lasted 20 years consecutively. And here you have one that was even devoted to providing humanitarian aid to the people in Gaza, and they shot that up. So what was a beautiful event became a murder scene.
Why do you think this gunman allegedly picked, he didn't allegedly pick this. The gunman picked this event. And if we believe the police charges, he drove all the way from Chicago, Illinois to commit these crimes. Why would he pick this event?
It's hard to say. I'm sure he made very few distinctions in his own mind between various kinds of events that Jews or pro-Israel Jews could be holding. But, I think this is a very deep-seated ideology. We see this ideology on the far left. It's migrated from colleges to K-12 education, where I think right now it's a big problem. And we're basically conditioning a generation of young people to see the world in a very stark way between oppressors and oppressed. And they tend to look at Jews or Israel as the oppressors, and they look at everybody else as the oppressed. And I think it was just a matter of time before this ideology gave rise to this kind of violence.
Bobby, today in New York City, police have posted heavy weapons teams outside synagogues, outside Jewish buildings. The New York City Police Commissioner said it was there as deterrence and reassurance to the Jewish community. We see the same thing happening in cities across the country. The commissioner said the threat level has been at a whole new level since the October 7th Hamas terrorist attacks and shows no signs of abating. And this kind of police presence, this is happening in cities across the country.
Yeah, Elizabeth, I mean, I take no pleasure in saying that I kind of predicted this would happen because of the permissive environment that we've allowed these protests to take place. And when I say protests, I mean, they have grown from regular protests where you're voicing an opinion or an opposing view to really radicalization rallies. These are radicalization rallies. And when you radicalize people and you get them whipped up like this and you allow it to keep happening, it's going to escalate.
Yeah. This
escalation was predictable, and it will happen again and again if we don't do something about it.
David, we've seen a 344% increase in anti-Semitic attacks over the last 5 years in this country. We only have about 10 seconds, but this is the highest number of attacks on record since the ADL started tracking these attacks in 1979.
Yeah, and I worry that if universities and K-12 education systems don't start intervening more forcefully, we're going to just see more.
David Bernstein, Bobby Chacon, thank you both so much for joining us with both of your expertise on this very sad story tonight. Appreciate it.